Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man. He'll unpack wisdom and insights from a cross-section of top quality performers in business, media, sports, entertainment, and lifestyle to uncover key elements to help you live your best audacious life ever. So without further ado, here is the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations, I'm Audley Stevenson, and this is the most audacious podcast on the web. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, and it's always a pleasure to be here as we continue our goal of helping you live your best audacious life ever. We love staying connected, and I encourage you to do so by hooking up with us on our social media channels. We are on Twitter and Instagram under the handle The Audacious Pod, and then on Facebook it's the Audacious Living Podcast. You can like, follow, subscribe, share, tweet, retweet, whatever you got to do, but that certainly are the best ways to stay connected to us. There's also our YouTube channel when you can hit the notification button, and that way you'll be alerted every time we produce new content. So always ways to stay connected, no doubt about that. As some of you know, I am the proud ambassador. I'm a volunteer ambassador with a health organization called Brain Cancer Canada. And part of my role is to help spread the news of the good work that they are doing. As a charity organization, Brain Cancer Canada does outstanding work in supporting people diagnosed with primary brain tumors. Glioblastoma is one of them, and it's fatal because there's no cure for it. Typically, those who receive this diagnosis are given a lifespan of anywhere between 15 to 18 months after treatment. By creating awareness, generating funds, and supporting funds that support technology and research, plus their continued advocacy work, Brain Cancer Canada is looking to change that, and they're looking to make a difference to those individuals that receive these horrific diagnoses and their families. And it's for this reason I'm happy to lend my time, energy, and passion in whatever way I can. On today's episode, Marc Peeters. I'm really pleased to actually be joined by Marc because he has a lot of tremendous insights on the organization and their work. He currently sits on the board of directors, and he's actually his title is Director of Partnership and Stakeholders for Brain Cancer Canada. He does an awesome job of moving the message of the organization forward. And like I said, during our conversation, he provides some really good context about Brain Cancer Canada. He gives us a bit of a history lesson on the organization and really provides some good insights in not only the work that's being done, but the work that continues to happen to fight brain tumors. And he also adds a simple thing that we all can do to help. So like I said, it's a great conversation. Really glad Marc could join us and provide some great context into Brain Cancer Canada. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with Marc Peeters. Enjoy. Brain Cancer Canada is a national charity that supports people diagnosed with malignant brain tumors like glioblastoma by funding research, technology, and treatment. Marc Peeters is the Director of Partnerships and Stakeholders, and he'll discuss the work that Brain Cancer Canada is doing in the ongoing fight against glioblastoma and other brain tumors. Plus, he'll also let us know how we all can help. Marc is up next on the Audacious Living Podcast. Hey, Marc, how's it going?
It's going well, Audley. How are you?
Awesome. Great to have you here. Appreciate you spending some time here on the podcast with me. And we're talking about BCC. And by the end of this conversation, everyone will be quite familiar with what that stands for Brain
Absolutely.
Cancer Canada. So talk about your role, and perhaps we can start there.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me here today. And thank you for being an ambassador for our organization, which we appreciate a lot what you do for us and help us, spread the word and make brain cancer more known, because that's what we believe the first step in solving is, and that's our ambition too. So what I do with the organization, I am a volunteer, like everybody in this organization. We don't employ anybody for a salary, other than a sparse professional service that we need to hire here and there. And I am in the board, which means that together with my colleagues, we set the plans, the strategies for the charity to grow. And ultimately, our goal is to make sure that brain cancer becomes a disease that we can manage much better than that we can today.
Right. You know. So the first point that you raised when you talk about the organization being run by volunteers. So like that's for real. I mean, it's all like everyone is there because they believe in it. I can speak for myself. You know, I came on board as an ambassador. You know, I had a friend that's living with glioblastoma, and that's how the awareness started. And when I learned more about the organization and that piece around the volunteers, that's really got my attention and why I'm involved. I want you to talk about, because I'm sure there's lots of other stories and in terms of connections or involvement. Why don't you just touch on that piece?
Yeah. So Brain Cancer Canada started out as a very grassroots organization. So there was a family, was confronted with a person in their family who had brain cancer, and they found out that the outlook is quite dark. There isn't much you can do. There isn't a lot of options when it comes to treatment. There's a lot of still is unknown, and there isn't much information for families who are dealing with this. So at that point, they decided, this is not good enough. We need to make a change, and that's what they did. They started Brain Cancer Canada, and from that it grew. They've been around for 5 years. This year we changed from Brain Matters, what the organization formerly was called, to Brain Cancer Canada, and the board was expanded.
Can you talk about the change in names? I think that's significant, that point around why the organization switched change names.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It was no, go ahead. It was a very practical thing, I think. Brain Matters required explanation. What does it mean? Is this about neurological disease? Is this about, psychological, you name it? And Brain Cancer Canada is much more clear and descriptive in that sense. So that helped a lot. Instead of, starting with a conversation who you really are, you can start with a conversation where it's about and talk about the disease and create awareness.
Gotcha. I want to be sure to talk about your involvement, what got you involved, because we're just joking off right about how much you know and have to learn, and you're a finance guy, right? And all of a sudden you're in this whole new realm.
Right. Yeah, I knew friends via and they are involved in this. They're doing this. I landed in Canada less than a year ago in August 2020. I'm Dutch, and I've lived in Sweden for a while, and I moved now with my family, and we finally realized our dream of coming to Canada, and I wanted to do something here, and that's always been in me. At some point there was a call for directors. I heard from a friend who is a friend with the chair of the charity that they were looking for people, and I immediately applied, and I didn't have this particular disease in mind when I wanted to do something good, but like you said, you get quickly involved if you learn about this disease. I went from knowing practically nothing or the average to getting involved a lot, and there is a lot to learn, and this is why awareness is so important.
Glioblastoma, which it took me a while to pronounce it. I've got to admit, I struggled when I first.
You got it right.
Not an easy one, but it's one of the more fatal diseases because, again, not being any cure. So I wanted you to sort of talk about what we know about thus far and where we're at, and sort of what that road looks like.
Yeah, no, you're right. There isn't a cure, and we'd like to say there isn't a cure yet, because we're really trying to make that change. And glioblastoma is one of it's one of the more aggressive types of brain cancer. Most people don't make it past 15 to 18 months post-diagnosis. It's a grim outlook, and there's so little at the moment that we can do about it. If you get diagnosed, you get the standard care that you can get, and it's usually resection if that's possible, because it's in the brain, and if it's in the wrong position or in the wrong spot, you can't really take it out. You might get radiotherapy, you might get chemotherapy, and then what happens when you have a tumor that's treatment naive, so that responds to to treatment? What usually happens is that you get a recurrence, and this is the hard thing about this disease. When the tumor recurs, it is biologically up to 70% different from the original tumor. So that means that it won't respond to that standard of care that you have for the first round, and that also means that is ultimately usually what is fatal.
Well, it's eventually it's evolved, so to speak.
Yeah, you could say that, and this is why, for example, maybe it's good to touch upon that now. Yesterday, we've announced that we are funding research by the amazing Dr. Sheila Singh. She is looking into recurrent glioblastomas. And what they're doing now is they're using new technologies like CRISPR, which is a way to sequence genomes and understand their makeup. Yeah. They're using that to find weak points into the specific change, the recurrent glioblastoma. And then they take another very new and very exciting technology, which is immunotherapy. And then they pretty much arm T cells, your white blood cells, to specifically attack those weak points in the tumor and try to stop them from growing. This is a completely new and different approach. It leverages new technology. It means that if it is successful, which is an if, this needs to be researched. It means that you, as a patient, might not need to rely on tried and tested and, quite frankly, failing things like chemotherapy and radiotherapy. So it's a very complex disease. Brain tumors in general, there's not one brain cancer. There's dozens. There's like 30, 35, 40 different types, and that's the struggle that we have. We need to really look into a wide array of diseases, really, which are categorized under one, and there's a lot of work to do. There hasn't been really a breakthrough in glioblastoma for 15 years. And even that breakthrough was fairly marginal. It extended the lifespan for the average patient slightly longer, but not that significantly. So this is why we're so enthusiastic about this research. It opens new possibilities that we really need to explore.
And that's a big deal, Mark. We're talking $100,000 to a type of research to extend it to create more possibilities. Tell me, why do you think the research in terms of glioblastoma specifically is a bit behind? Why is it?
It's, like I said, it's very complex, and it takes a while. Research is always very incremental. You need to have one discovery to lead to the next, and to the next, and to the next. It's very hard often to do biopsies. There aren't many biopsies done on recurrent brain cancers or recurrent glioblastomas because it usually doesn't. There's no point to it. So there isn't very much material that you can work with. So there's 10, 20 more reasons why it's so complex and so difficult. The position in the brain also means that when we're applying treatment, you have to go through the blood-brain barrier if you use conventional therapies, which is a sort of membrane. I'm probably using all the wrong words because I'm not a scientist, like you said, but it's a barrier that filters out anything over a certain size, and it's at nanoscale, so it's super small. And if you want to effectively target a tumor, you need to put in so many chemicals into a patient that they won't survive that. And that's one of the other key challenges with brain tumors and especially brain cancers in particular. It's hard to attack them.
Gotcha. So I want you, if you, Mark, give me a sort of a timeline, if you will, here. So someone's diagnosed, right?
Yeah.
They receive treatment. They're given a window of 12 to 18 months approximately, a lifespan, if you will. And is that on average what we're seeing now?
Yeah, I think that the median, what they call the median, so up to 50% of the patients will die within 15 to 18 months. And I think the 5-year survival rate is in the single digits, around the 5%. So you can imagine, if you get this diagnosis, you know that you need to already be 1 in 20 people to see this through for the next 5 years. So it's a very tough diagnosis, and we have, I would say, the privilege with Brain Cancer Canada to work with a lot of patients whom we involve in our work as well, because they're so fiery, man. They want to make a change, and that's so motivating. It's hard at the same time, because their condition, and being with somebody who has received this diagnosis, it's tough.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. I mean, Steph, as an example, she has been a ball of energy and a light to so many because of that will to keep going and to keep fighting. And so when you talk about the inspiration that you get from individuals such as that and the ball of fire that they are, it's so amazing considering them circumstances. And you wouldn't even, looking at them or interacting with them, you wouldn't even know, what their situation is. But it's just so incredible to watch, inspirational.
It is. It absolutely is. And Steph, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting her yet. I hope that happens soon. And you can see she's such a powerful, strong individual. I saw from the podcast with you that I watched, and I would recommend anybody who hasn't yet caught up with that, please watch that one, because it's so good. She's so good, so strong, so healthy, taking care of herself. And I'm super happy that for her the outcome is that she gets to live so far, and I hope that for everybody that she'll be the anomaly, and at the same time I can't escape the feeling that somebody else who gets the same diagnosis and puts in the same amount of energy and effort and into their health and being healthy and taking care of themselves, that might not happen for them, and that's what's so hard and unfair about this disease as well.
Well, yeah, it doesn't discriminate. It attacks. No. And you're right. I think you make a really good point that you get this diagnosis and you immediately want to, again, take care of your health, you eat right, all the things that you're supposed to do, and it may or may not. No one really knows, and that's the part that's got to be tough, not only for those individuals but their families as well. I wonder if you sort of talk about that, because that's a whole other aspect that we oftentimes gets forgotten about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very tough for survivors and people taking care of patients to see their loved ones go through this process, because as you can imagine, brain cancer it attacks something so intimate to yourself. It's your brain. It's where you think. It's where your function resides. And we have a lot of family members that have joined or supported Brain Cancer Canada in one way or another, and they also become strong advocates to fight against this disease. I can't speak for them in terms of what they've gone through and how they've experienced it, but you can see and you can feel the universal frustration that there isn't anything that we can do really. And then there is this, we spoke to a family, Angela, the chair, and I last week, who had a daughter pass away from DIPG. And DIPG is a form of brain cancer that is common in children. And when you talk about glioblastoma, it's a tough diagnosis to know that 15 to 18 months is your average lifespan from that moment on. But for a disease that's so prevalent in children, DIPG, it's less than that. It's a tumor that resides in the brainstem. They usually cannot operate on it because a lot of the function is in the brainstem. So if they do that, they might literally, if they make one small wrong move, they might kill somebody. So it's not usually an option to do a biopsy or to do any resection. It sits in the middle part of the brainstem, which is the most critical part as well. And when parents get this diagnosis as a family, can you imagine, they get to hear it's about 8 to 12 months, and that's what you can wish for. And go home and make memories, because there's absolutely nothing that we can do. With glioblastoma, you can have therapies, have some therapies, but with DIPG, it's all palliative, and you don't even have a guarantee that will actually do something. You can go through a course of chemotherapy, and that might extend the child's life, but it might also not help and make a few weeks or months that they still had miserable. So that's when I think about families, that's where it hits home, and it hits really hard. And this particular family is, they lost their daughter last year, and they've taken the fight, and they've said, this is not good enough. And they've taken their own approach to advocate for awareness. They had the CN Tower light up in May, which was a beautiful gesture. And they've started a petition, and what they would like is for Canada to recognize May 17 as a national day of DIPG awareness. And I would like, if I can take shamelessly 30 seconds to... If you listeners would please help support this family. And the best way you can do that is to open, grab your phone now, open your browser, and look up petition E-3426. So that's petition E-3426. And please go there, please sign it, so that we can at least make this very small step and help families in Canada that are experiencing this. And it's a rare disease, but it's still 30 families each year that suffer through this, that have to go through such enormous amounts of pain and grief. And doing this, it might seem symbolic, but it means the world to them.
Well, absolutely.
So
I think when you sort of look at the gesture and taking the fight to it, right, in terms of creating this awareness, as a way of creating a lasting memory. It's amazing. And to think children are being attacked at such a young age. And as to your point, all you have left to do is to make memory. Again, another tough diagnosis, a tough situation to be in. And my heart goes out to them as well. It's an unfortunate and sad situation.
Yeah, it really is. And it's also something, we have to also look at ourselves as an organization. We haven't yet achieved something in pediatric brain cancer. I'm speaking a little bit early here because we will have a board meeting tomorrow where I will table it. But it's something that I personally really would like to change. We're a young organization. Our scope is we fight against primary malignant brain tumors, and pediatric cancers are part of that too. So, hopefully if all your listeners go there and sign petition E-3426, then I will promise you that won't be the last step, the last thing that we'll do, because we're going to fight and try to make research happen like we did for glioblastoma this week with Dr. Singh. Well,
we'll definitely do our part and share and create the awareness around this, and ensure that we get as much signatures as we possibly can, because it's definitely a worthwhile initiative and cause. So I thank you for that. As terms of BCC moving forward, acronyms of BCC now. In terms of BCC moving forward, in sort of future initiative, what's on the table, or what's on the plate? What's in terms of actions and moving forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the board got expanded with one particular thing in mind. Like I explained, it started very grassroots with one family that did tremendous work to build this up, and now it seems we're ready for the next step, and we want to go Canada-wide, because when you're just a family trying to do this, you're naturally limited to the resources you have, and you start with the environment around you. And now we're going to go Canada-wide, which means that we will focus our fundraising efforts all across Canada. We will focus our research funding efforts across all of Canada. technology, we've in the past contributed to buying very expensive equipment that is needed to do research or to treat patients. That is all in scope to do for all of Canada, and making that change. So that's more about the geography that we're working with. When it comes to the subjects, we still focus on two things. One is fundraising, which is the basis for everything, really. And with those funds, we want to spend every year 95% of the funds that are incoming directly into research or technology. We'll leave 5% for overhead. That's a necessity, and unfortunately, but we have expenses too. But 95%, I think that's a very good number. It's very ambitious, and it's only possible because we rely so heavily on people doing this voluntarily. So 95% to research, 5% to overhead, 0% to salaries. And then there's the other part that we need to do, and that is advocacy. We want to make a change because we want to have a situation where brain cancer research no longer needs to rely on charities so much. There isn't a big budget for researching brain tumors. It's maybe 3% of all tumor research funds that are available from the government goes to brain tumors. And then an even smaller portion of that goes to actual cancer. So there is a difference between malignant and non-malignant. So it is not a lot. And our idea is not to take away some funding from non-malignant tumors and put that to malignant. That's not the idea. We want to increase the pie. We want to make sure that the priority gets lifted, that we understand that this is a problem. And this is why awareness is so important, because that will help us convince politicians and governments and government bodies to make a change. And now is the time. Like I said, we're now leveraging two new technologies with the genome sequencing and the immunotherapies that actually bring new light to the table where we could make that change. So now is the time to invest in it and to do that. And in order to do so, we need to table that. We can't let the government rest and think that things are covered.
Well, I can see where sometimes if you're not putting the pressure on, that's quite frankly part of the advocacy work you've got to do, is put that pressure on, because I'm sure if politicians, there isn't a politician that's going to look at you and say, well, no, that's not important, but they still need to feel that pressure, so they recognize that they can't just say, hey, you do good work. It's you do good work. How can we support your initiative? Or how can we help your vision move forward? And that's where the advocacy comes in.
Exactly, and it's so important to make that point clear. Last week, one of our ambassadors who's been diagnosed with a brain cancer, she sent me a video, and like I told you, I've only landed here less than a year ago, so I'm not fully aware of everything that has been said in the political landscape in Canada. But she showed me a video of a politician defending choices in terms of budget when it came to choosing for certain chemotherapies. And I believe the discussion was about whether generic was good enough or brand name therapies. And there was an analogy made between having to manage children in a toy store or a candy shop where they wanted to have everything, and the dad had to be reasonable and not just give everything. And if those kind of words are being used, or if those kind of analogies are being made, I feel like we have a lot of work to do.
Yes. That's the same thing as you said that too, because that certainly isn't it at all. We're not talking about wanting to, this is a necessity. This is a need. Lives, families are being impacted, and
absolutely
that particular individual, that politician, they haven't recognized the need yet, and that's why the work needs to happen.
Exactly, and we shouldn't be angry with them. We should educate them. We should help them go further and move things. I mean, we're coming out of a pandemic, and there's light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm glad we are all coming out of it now. And you can understand how precious both your health and your time are, and those are things that are very, very much under attack when you're being diagnosed with a brain cancer. So the kind of respite that we have given ourselves during this pandemic and thinking like this is bad and we need to do something and we need to put billions into vaccines, etc., there are people that have something similarly urgent happening to them, and they don't feel as supported yet. And it would be great to just move the needle a little bit. We don't even need to go that far. Just move it a little bit so that we can get some results just sooner.
Marc, do you have a sense of the numbers in terms of how the average number of people that are impacted or affected?
Okay, from the top of my head, I think it's about 3,000 Canadians a year that get diagnosed with a brain cancer. It's slightly over that if I recall correctly. So that's a big amount. I think 40% of brain cancers are glioblastomas. And then, we spoke about DAPG as well. That's about 30 families in Canada, which you think that might not be as much. But to think of it, by Saturday next week, there will be another family that will have this devastating diagnosis for one of their children and no outlook from there on. So it's about the impact as well that this has. And that's what numbers can't really express.
And the reality is, I don't think we need to wait till these numbers grow. And we have no indication of that it won't grow or won't become more. No. So if there's an opportunity to address it now and we can stem it so it doesn't impact more families, then why not take that opportunity?
Exactly. And you know what? The sad thing is there will never be a big crowd of brain cancer patients that will, go protest somewhere because the nature of the disease, they will pass away. They will always be in small numbers, relatively small numbers. But that means that, the count of people that have succumbed to this disease will only grow over time unless we start to make a real change. And that's what we can do.
Gotcha. Marc, this has been so enlightening, and I really appreciate you doing this. There's some sponsors that we want to acknowledge. I think that's important that we do so in terms of the support that they've given to Brain Cancer Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Because, it's been a very hard time also in our field to make sure that we get the funds so that we can support research and technology. And, like I said yesterday, we were able to give $100,000 grant, and that's largely in part to Scotia Wealth, Yamana Gold, and Hampton Securities, who have in a time that's also very tough for companies, nonetheless been very emphatic and showed support to us. Even the benchmark usually is that we have an event or a gala, and now we just had a campaign. I'm saying just with big quotation marks because it was a spectacular campaign, I think, that our marketing and communications team created, and our fundraising team worked excellently with that. And these kind of sponsors are what's keeping us afloat and making sure that this year we can probably do another 2 grants. And that's amazing. Knowing that there is companies that are behind us like that gives us an additional boost of energy.
Especially coming out of the year that we're coming out of. I mean, we're not, COVID isn't quite done yet, but we know what it's done across the landscape to everyone. We've all been affected. Some have lost jobs, businesses have closed. We've seen it all. So to see organizations and companies still step up and support, that says a lot.
Yeah, that's amazing. And they've really stepped up together with another bunch of companies who are emphatically supporting us as well. And it makes you feel humble. And we see that both the sponsors and the personal donors that support us, we see that as something that is we need to be very careful with. We need to make sure that money lands well. So what we do in our organization is we always announce when we do funding, we explain, what the research is for, and we're going to report that back. And one of the things that we're going to do due to the expansion of the board is that we're going to be even more transparent about our reporting. We're going to say, this is how much money we received, this is what we sent to research, and how much and how quick. Because although we started this campaign less than a month ago, and within 30 days, our fundraising team had enough money, our marketing and communications team got the message out there, and my team got the connection to Dr. Sheila Singh and found the research to do this. We have so many wonderful people of all ages whom I'm so so incredibly proud of, that they're willing to do this. And it's a wonderful achievement, really, especially in, like you said, in these times.
Amazing. No, it's incredible. I mean, less than a month, I didn't even realize that. But that says an absolute lot, Marc. Which is fantastic. This has been great. For listeners who sort of want to, gain more insight and understand more about Brain Cancer Canada, where could we send them?
Yeah, that's a great question, and this is one of the things that I would like to ask today. Go to braincancercanada.ca. Read about what we do. I'm not asking you to donate. I'm asking you to educate yourself a little bit. Again, please sign that petition E3426. Super important to us, super important to the Canadian families who have gone through this or are going through this. And then the third thing, it would be so wonderful if everybody could, ask 5 people to do the same thing. Maybe, you can post it on social media, and we do that too, of course, and that creates some engagement. But please reach out to just 5 people in your network who you think would be interested in it, and ask them personally, because that's going to make a change. That is going to help us so much. It would be wonderful if your listeners could do that.
That's amazing. I think it's a great approach, a great strategy. And it's a grassroots approach, Marc, that's for sure, right?
It is. That's what we're all about.
That's how you do it, right? So we'll definitely encourage that as well. We'll make sure that the e-petition is made available through our site, and we'll make sure it's in the show notes and that kind of stuff. So there'll be lots of opportunities for listeners and viewers to check it out. Marc, this has been awesome. Thank you for sitting here with us and chatting on the podcast and increasing our insights and awareness more about Brain Cancer Canada, Glioblastoma, and all the incredible work that's happening behind the scenes. So thank you.
Thank you, Audley. Thank you for having me, giving us this opportunity, being our audacious supporter. It's absolutely fantastic. And I love your podcast, and I'll be happy to keep listening to it in the future.
Thank you very much. I'm very proud to be an ambassador in this very important work, and I'm glad I can do my part to help spread the word. So thank you.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Back we are here on the podcast, and first off, I gotta say thanks to Marc once again for the great chat. It was informative, it was insightful, and I think if there's listeners who are listening and didn't know much about Brain Cancer Canada or have never heard of glioblastoma, are walking away after this conversation with definitely a bit more understanding and awareness, and that really was the goal. So again, Marc, thank you for that. I'll put in a plug for the e-petition Marc had made reference to, and I would encourage our listeners to check out the e-petition to get National DIPG Awareness Day recognized on May 17th. You can head over to braincancercanada.ca for more information. I'll also make sure that the link to that e-petition is also in the show notes as well. We've reached the end of this week's episode, and thanks as always to the listeners for the ongoing support. I can't say enough how much it is appreciated, so thank you. If you're a listener or a viewer for that matter, and you haven't registered for email notifications of the podcast, you can do so by heading over to bestaudaciouslife.com. All you've got to do is enter your email address, and you'll be alerted and get a notification every time new content comes out. Again, thanks as always for checking out the program, and until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.